You know, I talked earlier about asking the right questions and how important that is in terms of getting information that's really useful. And one of the things that we've observed over the years is that there is an expectation that people and their decision making are very rational. We're almost like computers processing the information and coming up with the right answer. Well, it turns out that's completely not true. Let me give you a couple of examples. And I have teenage kids, so I tend to pay a lot of attention to liquor ads. And one of the places you can see that is, what do you think a totally rational argument for liquor sales would be? Well, how much is it? You know, what's the flavor like? You know, strictly rational decision-making criteria. But if you watch liquor ads, and I'll pick on Captain Morgan's rum, it's none about that. It's not about that at all. It's about how drinking Captain Morgan's rum makes you feel, and how cool you'll be if you drink Captain Morgan's rum. In fact, in all the time I've spent watching liquor advertisements, I've only seen one that was really rational. It was for a wine called Chicago wine, and it was a billboard ad, and the slogan was, "Chicago wine, it gets the job done." And clearly Chicago wine was intended for that segment of drinkers we call winos. But for the most part, that's not how we sell it. Now, there's been a lot more formal research which shows that people don't act in rational ways. There's a group called Amos and Tversky who won the Nobel Prize in economics. And one of the things that they did, one of the experiments they did, was they looked at the sale of pens, and then they looked at the sale of a suit. And the sale of the pen, you had a $25 pen, or you could go about 10 miles and get the exact same pen for about $10 less. And then they had a suit, which was about a $445 suit, or you could go about 10 miles and get the same suit for $10 less. Now, according to economists' view of rational man, they would say, well, you would be just as likely to make the two decisions. But in fact, that's not the way it works. You're much more likely to travel the 10 miles to get the cheaper pen, even though it's the same amount cheaper, than to get the cheaper suit. Now, on the face of it, this may seem to be irrational, but if we really think about it, we are also emotional people. And so if we think about it from an emotional point of view, one of the things we think about is, well, wait a minute, I'm driving 10 miles, but I'm only saving a very small fraction of the price of the pen, even though it's the same amount of money, versus saving a very, a very large percentage of the cost of that pen. Whereas for the suit, it's a very small percentage. So one of the things that happens is, because we are emotional, we get angry if we feel like somebody's trying to rip us off. So that's one of the explanations for that. And I'll give you a more realistic one, or at least one that's more common, and that's when we go to the theater and we see how much we pay for candy, popcorn, sodas. It's no surprise that people in the wintertime, particularly when they can, will smuggle stuff in and feel no moral compunction about it, because those prices are so high that it makes people feel like they're being ripped off. So the problem with rational man and thinking about all rational decision making is there are other factors that come into play, and we need to be thoughtful in the research that we do to account for those non-rational factors.